Hello, my fellow Hulk fans. It's Jerry Rasco with you. And yes, indeed, that means we are talking today about The Incredible Hulk, specifically Tales to Astonish number 77, featuring the ongoing stories of The Incredible Hulk. This is going to be a fun issue. We've got some interesting information to talk about when it comes to the art team, and the story is pretty good. There's a lot of action to look at, so I'm very excited to share all this with you. Of course, before we jump into that, I want to thank everybody for subscribing to the channel. We are making great strides towards the 1,000 subscriber goal, and that is all thanks to you. So not only to the folks who have subscribed, but anybody who has shared out the content, shared out the channel, and maybe gotten it to people who wouldn't have seen it otherwise. Thank you so much for doing that and helping out the channel. If you're new and you haven't subscribed, you may be saying, what's the big deal about subscribing? Well, of course, it helps the channel to grow. The other thing about subscribing, though, is I have created 6 pieces of original one-of-a-kind art, each one showcasing the main characters from one of our comic review series. And when we get to 1,000 subscribers, I will be giving 6 lucky random subscribers artwork for free. So each person is going to win one piece of artwork, and let me show you what you could win just by clicking that subscribe button. First, we have the Amazing Spider-Man. We have the X-Men. Of course, we have the Hulk. We have the Avengers. And then we have 2 series that are still coming up very, very soon. We have Captain America in his solo series, and we have the Fantastic Four. So, just by clicking that subscribe button, you are registered to win one of these pieces of artwork. And if we draw your name, you are one of the lucky winners, and everything is free. There's no cost to register. There's no cost to click that subscribe button, and even the shipping of the artwork will be free. So that's a big thanks to everybody who does get us to that 1,000 subscriber mark. So again, if you like free artwork, click that subscribe button and come join us as we build out the channel and the community here. In the meantime, this is a great book. I'm very excited to get into it with you. So let's head over and check out the comic. So here is the cover to Tales to Astonish number 77. And if you've been following the series, you know that we are in a stage where the cover is alternating between one month is featuring Submariner, and the next month is featuring the Hulk. So here we have the Hulk featured cover, which is great. This is a really good cover. It is definitely Jack Kirby. I don't know who inked it. I did try to check the credits to see. I know that we'll get to who inks the interiors. It's possible that it is the same inker. Again, there's just no listed credits, so I don't know for sure. But it's definitely a Jack Kirby penciled cover and looks phenomenal. I love this Hulk. This is really good. I like a Hulk that is monstrous looking. The face is really good. The hands are oversized. Oversized hands and feet with a slightly smaller head makes your character look much bigger, much more monstrous. And we've kind of got that here. Excellent stuff. I love those hands. The big hands are terrific. Looks really, really good. Great shadows throughout. That dark shadows. They're clearly in some sort of cave. And it just looks great. Then you have the terrified look of Rick Jones as he's screaming out, Bruce Banner is the Hulk. So there we go. The cat is out of the bag there, and we'll see. You have to find out who he is telling. I also really like the red color in the background. Obviously, that helps the other characters pop because none of them have red in them, right? We've got the blue military uniform of whoever Rick is talking to. He is in white with green pants, and of course the Hulk. So that red really makes all the figures pop out really nicely, as opposed to maybe doing a neutral gray or a brown or something like that. So the red background, excellent choice there. We're going to skip over the Submariner part of this because we don't cover Submariner in this channel. This is the Hulk, so let's get to the Hulk part of the comic. So real quick, we'll go through some of the details. This comic is from 1965, and as I always tell you, this is a scanned PDF copy of this comic. So Marvel took the original. You can see the staples right there in the middle of the page, put it on a flatbed scanner, scanned it, and saved it to a DVD disc, which you can then, as I did, pop in your computer and look at those PDF files. So I love it. It's very original. Obviously, it would be really difficult to get your hands on every single issue between either availability, scarcity, and cost. So this is a great way to view these original books as they are. Reprints are okay, but often there are changes to reprints, whether it's computer coloring, changing the page count, stuff like that. So this is as original as we can get. So I really love this format just for those purposes. Let's talk about the art team, because we do have a change, which is really cool. We still have our script written by Stan Lee. We have layouts by Jack Kirby. So we talk about this all the time. Layouts mean Jack Kirby basically did very quick drawings to explain where the figures were on the page, how many panels, kind of breaking it all down into rough forms. It is very similar to storyboarding, if you're familiar with that concept when they come to movies and things, where they'll illustrate key points of the plot in very simple drawings so that people can visualize how it would be, what kind of angles the camera is at, what are we looking at, how many figures are in the shot, all that kind of stuff. So Jack Kirby has done that, and then he's handed it off to icon John Romita. So John Romita Sr., the guy who is, if you go to our Spider-Man review as of the time of this recording, is the regular interior artist for Spider-Man. So he, and at that point, definitely Spider-Man is the flagship comic for Marvel. And so you've got the biggest artist on the biggest book. And here we have, before he got on Spider-Man, we have him doing this Hulk story over Jack Kirby layouts. And John Romita is not just the penciler, he also is the inker. So very interesting. When we see him with other books, again, like when he works on Spider-Man, he often has other inkers. Here we get to see him ink himself. So that's really cool. And again, something you just don't see that often. So that's great. The story, real quick, the Hulk has been cast into the far future, about the 25th century, I believe they identified, and he finds two advanced warring cultures. Both of them know who the Hulk are, or who the Hulk is. One wants to use him to destroy the other, and he finds that the first guys he escapes from, when he goes to the other guys, the other group or the other faction is headed up by Asgard's Executioner. So if you're not familiar with that character, that is a character right out of Thor, oftentimes found with maybe Loki, Hela, or the Enchantress. A character, another Jack Kirby character that he created, and a character in Thor Ragnarok. So if you check out Thor Ragnarok, the Karl Urban character, that is the Executioner. So he is there as well. And so now, of course, the Hulk has to fight him too. So we jump right into the fight, right into where the story left off, which is great. Splash page is good. It's a good composition, especially considering how big this title is. I get it. That's fine. You could reduce the Bruce Banner is the Hulk by 30%, 40%. Give yourself a little more space, and it would still be bold, and you'd have a much better room for the composition. The Hulk wouldn't have to be so cramped up there. You'd have a little more breathing room around the Executioner, but this still definitely works. They are fighting on top of this sort of walking machine. It kind of reminds me of the War of the Worlds Martian machines. And right into the fight. There's good perspective here with the overlapping a little bit of the Executioner and the Hulk. So we see the Hulk is clearly in the foreground. The size difference is good. We've got shrapnel being thrown kind of towards us, getting larger as it comes forward. So good perspective there. Good work. The overall splash page is excellent. The inking is good. Everything is real solid as we start off. I love two things here in this panel. One, of course, is things are moving from left to right for the most part, right? We have our characters are both in that position. We're not flipping the camera around. That's terrific. And as I always say, left to right motion is important. It adds energy and speed because we as readers, we read from left to right. And so we look at psychologically things that are moving from left to right as forward progress movement. That's just how we look at stuff. And we've got that there. So the Hulk is throwing this hunk of wreckage, and the Executioner is slamming it right back at him. So you have great energy and speed here in panel 4, where all that debris is going past the Hulk super fast. The speed lines help, but just the fact that it's moving from left to right really does that. And then great power here as the Hulk comes smashing down onto the Executioner with those two big fists. The size is good. I love the lean of the body. It's so far forward. There's no way he's not putting every ounce of strength into it. Just all the weight of the figure moving forward is perfect. It's really lengthening out the figure. Like, this is an excellent, energetic punch, energetic action. This is what you want to see in your figures, is that great extreme motion, and we have it there. So that's a terrific panel down at the bottom. However, it's not enough to flatten the Executioner. This guy is an Asgardian. He is powerful. He can draw on energy, outside energy sources, apparently, to keep himself hale and hearty. So he continues the fight, and he and the Hulk fall off of the walking tank, whatever the thing is, to the ground, where they continue fighting. Now we cut to Rick Jones, and here, this is definitely a bad transition. So been talking about these a lot lately as you shift from scene to scene. Now, this is important here because not only are we switching from scene to scene, like it's the Hulk outside. Now, if you were to shift from the Hulk and the Executioner fighting outside to maybe to inside of the ship, that's not as dramatic of a scene change. We can kind of work with that. Here, not only are we changing time, but absolute location. Every character is different, and you need to understand that this is, they're not crashing to the ground and these guys are in the same place. This is somewhere else. And so it's in the narration here, but realistically, comic books are a visual medium, and it is a show, don't tell. And so when you do a transition like this, where 1 minute we're fighting in the future off and falling through the sky as these two titans are, battling each other in midair, and now we go to General Ross yelling at Rick Jones. You could tell the tone of the two scenes is very, very different. So here's the best thing you could do. Do it on a page turn. When we turn the page and come to the next scene, that's what you would want to have happen. That would be the best outcome. You could do some things. It would be very hard to do a visual transition where something similar here is happening in the next panel, because obviously that's kind of crazy action there. Even a thematic change where somebody is talking about what's happening and then somebody is also talking about something similar, that's an example, again, would be very, very hard. So the best thing you could do is to do a page turn transition. That would be best. Now, I'm going to give it a little bit of a pass here because this is half of a book. So it only has half of the pages to tell the beginning, middle, and end of this chapter of this story. So if you want to tell the whole story in a timely manner, you got to keep moving. And so you can't just go, well, let me expand these panels. I'll draw a couple really big ones and I'll just waste this edge of the page and do it on the next page. You're pushing everything to the end and there's not enough pages to do it. So I get it. That's a little tough. I'm just talking about generalities. If I was going to, which we're doing, we're critiquing this, right? And that's how we learn. I would do it differently. The other thing to point out here, this is a big no-no and it happens a few times in the book. You never want your characters to be standing on the panel border. When that happens, they are no longer, excuse me, inside of a frame that we're viewing through that has depth. Immediately, they're essentially on the surface of the page. And so that is a big no-no. You want to avoid that as much as possible. And it's not hard. You just, a quarter of an inch makes all the difference in the world in terms of where his feet are. And there's still plenty of room for everything. Let's talk about this General Ross. One of the things I noted here, this one, and there's another one as well later in the book. These faces very much remind me, not so much of John Romita, actually remind me of Sal Buscema. So in terms of, if you had your your Mount Rushmore of Silver Age Marvel artists, obviously you're going to have people like Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, and you could very much argue that John Romita and John Buscema would be on that Mount Rushmore. And then kind of following right behind might be Sal Buscema. So Sal Buscema is John Buscema's brother. He is an artist in his own right. He worked on Spider-Man for a really long time. He was also an inker, and John Buscema had been quoted as saying that he was one of his favorite inkers, that if he could choose anybody, he would choose Sal. He had a very unique look to his art. A lot of it was very, very angular, very, kind of quick, hard lines, even in like faces and stuff. There's something about General Ross's face that very much reminds me in this panel of a Sal Buscema face. And we see that later as well with a Hulk, and we'll point that out. The other thing I mentioned is, again, there's something about some of these faces here. We'll see it more on the next page, but almost have an animation style quality to them. And what I mean is, when you are doing animation, obviously it's a lot harder to do consistent drawings over and over and over. There are anywhere from typically 12 to 24 drawings, depending on your level of animation, for 1 second of animation. So if you have a line like a crease line, a frown line, a mustache, a double chin, or whatever, the more lines you put on, the more you have to keep in line and move through those drawings and redraw. So often animation is a distilled version of figures, characters, etc. And this face kind of reminds me of that. The mustache is just a big white kind of blob. The face is sort of distilled to just the basic elements that you need to identify it as General Ross. That's just my take. Maybe you feel differently. Again, I always recommend, please drop your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think. Does this kind of remind you of that animated style of artwork, or does it remind you, if you know, does it remind you of Sal Buscema? It does me. Let me know your thoughts. So here's the deal. The Army has had Rick Jones in custody basically about as long as they can, knowing that there's a connection between Bruce Banner, the Hulk, and himself, but they don't know what it is. And of course, it was the military's weapon that sent the Hulk into the future, so they don't know if the Hulk is destroyed, if Bruce Banner's dead. They just can't find either of them, and they're trying to get answers out of Rick because it's the only lead they have, and he just won't talk. And to be fair, he honestly doesn't know. When he says, what happened, what did that gun do? And he's like, I don't know. And so they have to let him go. And even though they kind of like, we know you know something, but at this point there's nothing for sure. So he leaves. Talbot and again, here's this face right here. Again, very animation style, kind of like that early Filmation animation style. A little more detailed with some of the lines under the eyes, but I mean, very distilled down to a simple face. And Talbot here also real, like you could very easily see this being animated, like for me, in the kind of old school 60s, 70s, 1960s, 1970s cartoons. I think that, that style really plays up. So they're still, going to try to leverage Rick Jones. Betty is still talking about Bruce. Talbot realizes she still cares about Bruce. And so he has got to find a way to prove that Bruce was a traitor so that he can work his way into Betty's heart. And, you go, man, what a jerk. This guy, Talbot, sucks. That's what I wrote in my notes. I hate this guy. I've always hated this character. He's just the worst. Now, again, another bad transition where we go from Talbot talking about how he's interested in what he's going to do to try to, win Betty. And now we cut back to the future where inside the machine, there's a screen and we're seeing the Executioner and the Hulk struggling on the ground. There's a couple reasons this is bad. Again, there's no theme that runs between them. There's no visual connection between them. There's nothing that would indicate other than this narration that says, hey, we're going to head back and look at the future. And on top of it, it's a small panel. It's very dark, excuse me. You've got this dark coloring inside, which is fine. It's supposed to be inside of like a tank, basically. But you have this very, very small image of the Hulk and the Executioner fighting. And so it's really not clear. Unless you take a minute to read it and go, okay, I get what that is, it could be confusing. And so that's where there are better ways to do that transition and why that's so important. They are going to fire some weapons. Apparently, the Executioner cannot be harmed by his own weaponry. So they shoot at both of them, knowing it'll just hurt the Hulk. Here we have a nice big panel. The Hulk reacting to this stun ray is cool. The way he kind of flies off is great. It's good pose. The Executioner I don't understand, though. So I'm assuming that this is the horizontal ground, and that we're seeing the top of his head would indicate like he's also being flung towards us, because certainly this foot here is not standing on anything. And if it was on the ground, then the Hulk is just falling on his back as opposed to sort of being knocked off his feet, which is weird. So the Executioner is not, he's not in a pose that would indicate he's also being knocked from his feet, but he's not standing on the ground either. It's very, very odd. It's a really odd angle. If you just took just the Hulk in that image there, I think it works great. The angle that we're looking at the Executioner is a little strange. This is the other one. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. This is the Hulk face that I was saying reminded me very much of a Sal Buscema face. It's the way the nose crinkles up, the wrinkles around the eyes and the frown lines, just that shape. So Sal Buscema was a regular Hulk artist. Later on, we'll see him, and that just very much reminds me of that. So I don't know if that means maybe he was involved, uncredited, or maybe he learned not only at the feet of his brother, but also at John Romita, and maybe that's how he picked up some of that style. I don't know, but again, I'm curious if anybody is familiar with both artists. Let me know. Do you think, does this remind you, this face right here, does that remind you of a Sal Buscema face? It does me. Executioner cannot put the Hulk away, and he rises up and smashes him out of the way, just tearing the ground up. And then these machines start continuing to blast not only at the Hulk, but at the city he was in. I really like these two figures on the right-hand page. Even though they are very small, I love the anatomy and the thickness of the Hulk. You have not only the big arms, but you have this thick chest and back, and that again adds to the power of what he's doing. So we're finally seeing, in my mind, at least in this issue, what I would consider to be a more definitive Hulk depiction. The face, the anatomy, the size, the hands, the feet, all this stuff. You take a little bit of, grow that hair out a little bit, and we've got a prime 70s shaggy hair Savage Hulk. And that's really, really good. So yeah, this is really good anatomy in here. I think it's great. And so for such a small figure, it does a real good job of still showing that power through the anatomy. So it's really nice stuff there. So again, these are those machines like I talked about, and to me, again, they just very much reminded me of the Martians from the War of the Worlds, which I'm sure is the inspiration. And then again, we cut from here to Rick Jones wandering in the desert. No real connection there, but that's okay. And he is just, musing about, what am I going to do? And he's really torn. Should he tell everybody? He assumes that both the Hulk and Bruce Banner are dead. So should he tell everybody that they're the same person? Well, he thinks it would clear Bruce Banner of being a traitor, that maybe, he's assuming people would sort of have empathy or sympathy for a guy that was dealing with this terrible curse, but he's just not sure what to do. And here he goes back into what was their secret cave lab headquarters and remembers the times that he was there and Bruce was changing into the Hulk, and he kind of freaks out a little bit and finds he's not there alone. There is somebody there, and it's Glenn Talbot. And now, again, this is not bad. I like all of the emotions on Rick's face, what he's going through here, thinking to himself, being afraid, being sort of tormented by what to do. And Talbot's here. And if you didn't know the fact that he was doing this just to try to win over Betty, to sort of undermine Bruce's legacy just so that he can get the girl that he's interested in, it would come across as actually a really understanding and kind person. He's like, listen, I know you've got a secret and that's hard. And listen, if once you get it off your chest, it's going to be better. And I'll sit here and I'll wait until you're ready to talk, but I'm here for you. And you go, wow, that seems like a nice guy, except his motives are so scummy. So yeah. These images of the Hulk at the bottom of the page, not the best in the book. Some of the stuff that I really liked in these small figures here in the anatomy is kind of missing here. It's getting a little more frumpy, if you will. The eyes there, it's fine. The eyes get a little crazy as the Hulk goes into attack mode. But overall, the figure's not quite as good. Not quite as defined as it was earlier. So not the best Hulk images here. But I do like what he's doing. He attacks these walking tank things and does what only the Hulk can do. Destroys a couple and then the rest flee. And so the Executioner is mad. He wants to crush him, but now the other faction's army is coming out, and so he's got to flee. And here we go. So this is the King we saw in the previous issue where he wanted the Hulk to destroy his enemies, but he also knows that the Hulk's dangerous, so they're trying to capture him. And the Hulk is fading away because this trip was temporary, which is fine. It's kind of anticlimactic for this trip to the future. I was hoping that either the Hulk would be there maybe longer, or once I saw the Executioner, I was like, ooh, what if it would be cool if the Hulk managed to literally strong arm the Executioner into send me home, send me back to my time, and instead of sending him to Earth, what if he sent him back to Asgard? And then you've got the Hulk in Asgard. That could be a fun story. It doesn't look that way. He just is. He got some fighting in. He fought a couple different factions, and now it looks like he's heading home. And then here you go. Rick Jones spills the beans, which we kind of saw on the cover. We knew it was coming. Again, as I said, the cat's out of the bag. He tells, of all people, Talbot that Banner is the Hulk, and that it's Rick's fault. He saved him, and that's what did it. And so now they head off, and there's this mysterious they call it a whirlwind, whatever. And of course, obviously, we know this has got to be right. I'm assuming this is the Hulk coming back. So there we go. And there's the issue. So that all said, it's been a good one. It's been fun. Let's head over to the desk and wrap things up. So there is Tales to Astonish number 77. Again, fun, a lot of action. I like the Hulk. I would have loved to have seen a full 24-page Hulk Executioner fight. I think that would have been awesome. I'm glad we got what we did, and it was really good. The John Romita stuff is excellent. You can see there's still the Kirby aesthetic with some of the design work, the small panels, a lot of panels per page, but you also had a lot of the John Romita energy. And you had the really good John Romita anatomy, which we see later in his Spider-Man work. So obviously the guy's a very versatile artist, being able to work on different kinds of characters. And overall, the thing looked really, really good. For a ranking of this one, I would give this a very solid 7 out of 10. Again, I would have liked more, but I'll take what I can get. And overall, pretty good story. So we'll have to see what happens. Now, is this a forever? Will everybody know that Bruce Banner is the Hulk? Is this a temporary thing? Are we going to find a way to tell everybody it was a trick or something and keep that secret identity? You'll have to stick around and find out. We'll have to watch, and you'll have to watch, and we'll have to review more Hulk comics to find out. So that all said, thank you so much. Drop your comments. Let me know what you thought about the book. Let me know about all the stuff I asked about. And of course, hit that subscribe button, and then join us right here next week for even more Incredible Hulk. Thanks.